What's the hardest job for catechumenate coordinators? Well, for me, oftentimes it's finding sponsors for our seekers.
Hi, my name is Diana McElden.
And I'm Nick Wagner.
And in this team initiation video, we're going to help you with that job.
So you know how it is. You get a new seeker and you start to scramble to find a sponsor, and then you get another seeker and another seeker. And, the panic, you start to feel, that maybe I'm not going to find enough folks for all these people. So I shift out of listening to kind of the needs of the seeker, and I start thinking about anybody that can kind of fill this role. I start tapping people on the shoulder and say, can you please do this? And there's a pressure to find anyone who's willing to kind of step in and serve in this ministry. And it's really not, I lose focus on what the needs of the seeker are.
And when that panic sets in, we tend to look for the low-hanging fruit, and that is usually people who are already overworked. We think that we have to ask for favors. Instead of asking people to do this really important job, we're begging them, can you just do this really easy, simple thing? It just takes a little bit of time. And that's not really fair for either the seeker or for the sponsor.
Sometimes I think we, in an effort to try to get people to say yes, we ask too little of the parish sponsors. And so we're not really considering the spiritual needs of the sponsor, and we minimize the call to discipleship when we describe sponsorship as something easy or something they can just kind of do in their spare time. And I think part of the answer is to shift out of that mode and not be afraid to ask parishioners to make some kind of a sacrifice of their time and their talent, something that's going to take a lot of work, something that they're going to actually have to think about before they say yes.
And that kind of invitation, where we're really making this not just a small favor, but really a big ask, something that will challenge them and ask more of them, that is showing that we trust in the Holy Spirit. We're not relying just on who we can get, but we're asking the Holy Spirit, help us find people who really will fit into this ministry, who really maybe have never thought of doing this ministry. Those people who are on the margins, who think they're not spiritual enough or good enough, the Holy Spirit, if we trust the Holy Spirit, they will lead us to the right people.
It helps if we can tell ourselves and tell our potential sponsors what a sponsor is not, because a lot of times when I first ask somebody to do this, especially if they've never been a sponsor before, they're worried that they don't know enough about being Catholic. They don't know enough theology. They don't know enough of the catechism. They don't know enough of the Catholic rules. And they think that they have to be holy and using that word in a sense that a lot of people think of it. But they do have to be holy, but they don't have to be pious. They don't have to be better than average. They don't have to be, sort of super saints.
So that's what sponsors aren't. Let's take a look at what sponsors actually do. Sponsors model real discipleship, which is messy. It's not perfect because the world is not perfect. They show how normal, everyday Catholics live their faith in their homes, at their workplaces, amid all of the pressures of daily life. They're companions. That's all they need to do, is to be a companion and to show how to live faith, because faith isn't taught, it's caught.
So one thing the sponsor can do to kind of demonstrate that discipleship and apprenticeship is to introduce the seeker to the rhythms of the liturgical year in the parish community. For brand new seekers who haven't had much exposure to Catholicism, the liturgical year is a new thing, and they're often fascinated by it. For Catholic sponsors, it's like breathing, they just live it, so to introduce seekers to that. And that means being active participants in the Sunday Mass. And we've got a lot of great parishioners who kind of check in once a month or so. And so those aren't ideal sponsors. We want folks who are actively engaged in the Sunday liturgy.
And when sponsors do this, when they live their faith in simple ways, but daily and in front of their companions, their seekers, they become changed. A lot of times, and you've heard this, sometimes the sponsors are changed even more than the seeker themselves. And that's because when a sponsor first encounters a seeker trying to live that faith, and then encountering the spark of the Holy Spirit for the first time, It gives the sponsor that new perspective. It renews their own faith and reminds them of what it was like to be on fire with the Spirit.
One way that happens is all the questions that seekers have. You know, we said before, sponsors don't have to have all the answers, but they do need to listen to all the questions. And seekers often have really profound and life-changing questions. And the seekers' questions might cause potential sponsors to realize that their faith may have been on autopilot for a little while. Seekers sometimes, without even knowing it, become evangelists to the sponsors.
So how then might we find and invite these amazing sponsors? Well, as we said, the first thing you got to do is don't be afraid to ask for big things. Don't make this into a favor that someone is going to do for you. Ask big, ask boldly. In fact, you can say this.
If you want your own faith to be set on fire, come walk alongside someone who's discovering Jesus for the first time.
So shift that invitation from being a role that's just filling in a spot to making it an awesome journey of faith.
You know, the top 20 volunteers in your parish are also not really your target audience, not because they wouldn't be good sponsors, but they're just so overworked already. They're so busy already. They just can't fit in one more thing. So start looking around for people closer to the margins. People are hungering for a deeper spiritual experience. And don't just speak to their head, speak to their heart, speak to that longing that they have for something more.
So as you're looking out over your parishioners on any given Sunday, don't look at the front rows. Go further back. Go into the middle rows, the back rows, people who are constantly there but maybe not necessarily stepping up. Here are some characteristics to look for. Look for everyday practicing Catholics, and that word practicing is important. It's not people who are perfect Catholics, but they are practicing it. That means that they're making progress on their own journey of faith.
Look for people who are good at listening, who practice active listening, or who can be taught how to actively listen. Look at people who are reluctant to offer advice or solutions. This is why I would make a terrible sponsor, because I'm always telling Diana what the answer is.
Look for people who are comfortable not having all the answers at that very moment, but want to find out, want to walk with the seeker to uncover and discover what that answer is. That means that they're going to have to be flexible, not have everything mapped out at that very time.
And we want to find sponsors who are going to help the seeker see how the Holy Spirit is showing up in their lives. This is really important because seekers are not used to seeing the signs around them, whereas even marginal Catholics are, they recognize the signs and they'll talk about the signs. And so when they can help the seekers do that, that's a really good apprenticeship practice.
Here's a really hard characteristic to look for. Look for people who are comfortable sitting with those thorny questions and issues, especially when it comes to church teaching. Seekers are going to have these questions about why we believe this, why we do this, especially those things that might not be comfortable or popular. These people, the sponsors that you're looking for, need to be able to just listen to the concerns and not jump to being a defender. We're not looking to defend the faith. We're looking to share the faith in all of its questions and uncertainties.
And look for people who have kind of a natural skill for discernment or who can learn basic discernment skills. And what we're discerning is, again, back to that idea of looking for the signs. We're discerning how the Holy Spirit is working in this person's life.
Good sponsors are often hidden. They're in the back somewhere, but they're there. They are quietly witnessing to the faith in small acts of hospitality, of comfort, of service, and they're not looking to be recognized.
These are folks who are routinely talking to strangers at Mass or at Coffee and Donuts, and they serve quietly in outreach ministries.
They're the ones who don't think of themselves as especially gifted or holy or smart about the faith, but they see how they can share their faith and they want to share that faith with others.
Don't rely on bulletin blurbs or announcements at Mass to be your main recruitment tool for sponsors, because they just don't work. They don't work because the kind of person you're trying to attract doesn't think you're talking to them when you make those kinds of announcements. You need to approach them one-on-one and explain exactly why their unique gifts are perfect for initiation ministry. Witness to them how you've seen the Spirit acting in them and why you think the Spirit is calling them to be a sponsor.
So what would happen if we rethought the way that we invite and recruit sponsors? What would happen not just to your potential sponsors, but to your seekers and your entire community? Imagine if you didn't have to share that burden all by yourself of shepherding all of your seekers. If your catechumenate team didn't have to worry about being sponsors themselves. What if you had a wonderful group of people who are quietly, consistently living out their faith and caring for others in that faith?
You know, the parishioners who maybe turned you down, or you didn't ask to become sponsors, or maybe still a little bit in the background, they'll see more ordinary Catholics like them, serving in this role, and they'll begin to see themselves as maybe being able to serve also.
And I think that your parish is going to start seeing this catechumenate ministry as less about this group that meets once a week in a classroom and talks about Catholic stuff, and start seeing catechumenate as a way of life where newcomers, seekers are apprenticed by the entire community. They see it as something that is happening right in front of them, right next to them, because of these relationships that are being formed between sponsors and seekers.
If sponsorship stops being a favor a parishioner does for a seeker and becomes a profound spiritual gift for the sponsor themselves, then sponsorship becomes a form of real adult faith formation. Sponsorship helps ordinary Catholics become confident, active missionary disciples.
And that ripple effect for the sponsors is going to happen in their families, in their own relationships, in their daily lives as their faith gets more and more fired up.
And your parish, if you really implement some of these ideas, is going to become a community of missionary disciples. So next time you get an inquiry, don't panic. Just start walking around the margins of your parish a little bit. Start looking for people that you might not have thought of, and start looking for gifts that the Holy Spirit has given them that might make them a great sponsor.
And better yet, don't wait until you get a new seeker. Start looking now and gather together that group of committed Catholics who are practicing their faith, who are loving others and wanting to share that with others. Hopefully this has given you some ideas to help you in your ministry. Come over to teaminitiation.com for even more ideas. My name is Diana McAlintoe.
And I'm Nick Wagner.
Thanks so much for watching.